Hey again, YouTube. It's Jonas Welsh here again, at 11 in City of Heroes, and the next character we're going to be looking at is what you probably call my main female toon, as it were. I don't have many female toons in comparison to male toons. Make of that what you will. I know some people have in the past, but you know, I'll still try and feign innocence. It's just the way it's turned out. But yeah. Yeah, Vénus Baissé is Corrupter. Not an archetype that I really was interested in playing much until I essentially made this character, and then I ended up with 4 in total actually. Corruptors shared a lot with essentially Blasters and Defenders. Traditionally, they were actually a villain archetype. As I mentioned in the previous videos, there was originally archetypes that was hero side only, or villain side only. So hero side you had your Blasters, Defenders, Controllers, Scrappers and Tankers, with Peacebringers and Warshards making up the epic archetypes. After reaching a certain level with a character, they got unlocked. Villain side, it was Brutes, Masterminds, Dominators, Corruptors, and then they had Soldiers of Arachnos as the epic archetypes at some point, which allowed you to essentially have playable Arachnos enemy types. Well, it used to be enemy types and then they became playable characters. So you had like access to the Widows and the Banes and the Spiders essentially, which were a major thing. So, but obviously with going rogue, we ended up with a situation where you could take traditional archetypes from one side over to another, and I originally wanted to make the character essentially an electric controller, because they were coming out with going rogue. Because I did quickly have a concept for this character Vénus being very much light-based and electric powers, but I was never really interested in the controllers so much. Actually, you'll notice I don't actually have any controllers or defenders at all, or dominators for that matter. I actually had one dominator and he was deleted and remade into a corrupter. Managed to essentially come up with a concept which probably actually worked out better, which was to have an electric blast storm summoning corruptor, but there was actually hero side, because she was still hero based. And yeah, very popular character for me to play with. She is a terrible nuisance against enemies, as you can probably imagine. Heavily IO'd out as well. So I mentioned obviously the Blasters where you didn't really want to get too involved massive mobs, because Blasters were not exactly big on, had no defense or damage resistance, and were also subject to a lot of holds and sleeps and whatnot from stuns and whatnot. Well, Corruptors were very much the same. They had the same problem, but Vénus doesn't have that problem so much, because first of all, she's an IO build that has capped range defense. So as long as she can keep a distance from the enemies, she's very hard to hit, because the defense is essentially at cap, which is, I think, somewhere just above 45%, heading towards 50, which was around the cap that you can get. And what also helps as well is that she is also very resistant from holds and sleep as well, by virtue of the incarnate system at play again, with yes, the Clarion Core, which is essentially permanent Mez protection, which was ideal for situations where you had a character that essentially didn't have them. So also with that comes the judgment power. So you've seen the massive fireball thrown from 11, and the big ice blast from Prince Bishop. Well, naturally, if we're going to go for someone that's storm based, yeah, have a massive lightning strike from the sky. So yes, Corrupters didn't really. Corruptors weren't essentially as damaging as blasters. The idea was that they were almost essentially the archetype that sat between what the defender and what the blaster was. Because the defenders had access to the same blaster sets as the blasters did, but they also had access to the sort of buff and debuff power sets. Mistakenly would be referred to as the healer, but they're not all. Defenders and Corruptors weren't always healer types at all. Some power sets offered healing. Other ones might have just been general buff of your allied team or debuff of the enemy. Some cases it was a bit of both. Did mix and match the two, but yeah, the Corruptor was a little bit in between because the defenders weren't really built for damage at all. They were there simply to obviously be a benefit to the team or a hindrance to the enemies, and that was pretty much it. They weren't really big on damage. The Corruptors though they would still have similar buff sets to the defenders, but their damage would be a bit more than what the defenders were capable of doing. The difference was fairly minimal as far as I could tell, though. It wasn't like a massive difference, but it was certainly more akin to that, although what the Corruptors had was if you had a chance to do essentially double the damage with Scourge, you received with one of them. If an enemy was below 50%, there would be a certain percentage chance that you'd hit an enemy with Scourge, which would just do more damage. That's how they really got around it. So yeah, but Vénus was not really built for damage as such. She was built simply to be an absolute nuisance to the mob, to the point where essentially they could do whatever they wanted to do, but they couldn't hit her, or they could barely hit her, and they couldn't stun her anymore as well after the the Carnage came out, and I was able to get med protection there. And essentially, yeah, the storm summoning was essentially enemy debuff more than anything. It had one ally heal, and it's like the worst heal in the game, or the O2, but it was just like one of the worst heals in the game. So it was only there for just in case. But essentially, if you were looking for heals, get someone else in that probably had one of the healer sets. To be honest, one escapes. Yeah, that's sorted. Yeah, the whole point of Vénus was just simply to be an absolute pain in the arse for the mobs. So did very, very well at that essentially. So yeah, I used to play with Vénus a lot. So it's another one which would be greatly missed. Having said that, I have recreated it. I have recreated a lot of my characters in Champions online. Somewhat okay. I'm probably going to touch that possibly in another video later actually, but there's a decent sort of like lightning based, storm based set in Champions, so there's a decent recreation of it, although the costume is a bit off. So anyone that plays Champions and obviously looks at this video, it's a case of you've got recommendations to someone match this costume here that Vénus got. The Champions would be greatly appreciated, because always did like the costume set that she had here as well. But yeah, really enjoyed this character. It's just such a great nuisance. Pretty much matched the concept I was looking for. Was basically looking for the storm summoning, sort of like fallen goddess essentially. If you're a bit off, if you know your French well, obviously, if you were in game, obviously you would mistakenly try and read her first name as Venus, but it's actually meant to be pronounced as Vénus, so it's meant to be Vénus Baissé, and then obviously the literal French translation would be Fallen Venus. So the concept was that at some point she was a goddess and then struck down to be immortal, but still retained a fair bit of power. So that was the concept behind the character, and yeah, this combination power set pretty much matched exactly what I was looking for, and was very spot on. So yeah, very another favourite to play with on occasion when essentially if my scrappers and my tankers weren't needed because there was already enough for them as it was, then you know, I'd bring out Vénus just to basically offer the debuffing if necessary. So now this might be a bit hairy because I think there's 2 mobs, but we'll see how this goes. This will either go spectacularly well still, or this will end the first phase planned of the video series. See how this goes. Firing off the judgments for the right way. I think we're surviving so far. I think I've actually kind of wiped them all out. That's sort of thing to work, yeah. I know a lot of people are actually going to make, if anyone wants to make the comment, oh hang on a minute, you put yourself on -1, you're, you know, you're cheating a little bit. Not technically, it is actually on even con. It is on actually equal level. It's just that obviously with the incarnate system, you obviously get the level shifts in action. So yeah, actually I've managed to wipe out 2 mobs with great ease. Well, that just shows you how powerful she has become with IOs and incarnates. So fantastic. Just head out. Yeah, I know a lot of these videos are all based in Peregrine Island, which might come across as a bit samey, but essentially it was the level 50 area for hero side, so there wasn't really much way in missions in all of the other zones as such, really. So can't really help that. If I'm going to pick up missions, most of them tend to be over in Peregrine. So so yeah, one thing I actually liked about this character as well is that they had a combat aura. So you were able to pick up auras in game, which used to be just simply permanent to the character, so they brought in combat auras, which essentially meant that at the moment there's no aura until essentially combat is played, and then you can see obviously we've suddenly got the lightning eyes and the lightning going across the body. Although what I used to do a lot as well is there was a lightning based costume change as well. When I find it on the list, where is it? Ah, fail, second on the list. I did actually have a costume where instead of obviously the kind of the smirk that she's got going on, that if she was a bit upset, she had the mad face on, and permanently had the combat aura of the lightning, which was a bit more prevalent, and also the storm clouds as well. So this is when she wasn't best pleased. So so yeah, this was a very fair, you know, it was one of my top characters to play with. I know I was noted for being more of the smashy type, the melee base, but yeah, you know, I really enjoyed this character, and as a result of this, actually got me to play more Corrupters eventually anyway. So it was really good. But yeah, gonna leave it on here because coming to the end of 15 minutes, and stay tuned for part 2, because there was another Vénus that was actually made that surprise was actually a scrapper still. So this is Jonas Welsh signing off, and I'll catch you for part 2.